try to go to the Largactyl, Largactyl Shuffle, because I think that sounds fantastic. So I'll see you there if I can get there.
The Largactyl Shuffle is a walk from Mosley Hospital to the Tate Modern, and it takes place once a month, but there is an October Largactyl Shuffle which commemorates the World Mental Health Day. This year's is slightly different from previous walks because this year's walk involves the use of 5 disposable sculptures that were developed and built in workshops that were run by CoolTan Arts. And these disposable sculptures are figures of leading scientists and social reformers, all who have roots along the route that the Largactyl Shuffle takes.
And we're going on a Largactyl Shuffle. I'm going to hand over first of all to the mayors who are both, we've got 2 mayors here, haven't we? The mayor of Southwark, I'm surrounded by mayors, I don't know what to do.
The principle of CoolTan Arts is to promote mental health through creativity. And I wish you well in the long walk you're taking from here to Tate Modern. Thank you very much.
Traffic lights, they're wonderful. There's no colour prejudice in Southwark. The drivers will go through any colour.
The reason why it's called Largactyl Shuffle, I guess, is because Largactyl is a kind of medication that is given to people with mental health problems, but the effect it has is that it makes people shuffle, so it makes them not walk properly.
We've been training some of the CoolTan Arts people to become volunteer walk leaders to make sure that those walkers are safe when they do that big walk through London.
It's really been about learning how to become a good walk leader, becoming responsible, knowing what's involved and working as a group, learning to work as a group. These lovely people from Southwark, this lady Sylvia, has taught us very well for the 3 or 4 hours that we've been here. I think we've learned quite a lot.
Well, my best point in the training just now, I think, was probably just moving towards doing it.
We got split up into teams and got to plan our own walks and think about the problems that may or may not arise and how we deal with them. I think that was a very good learning curve of how to deal with large groups of people.
I think the responsibility is going to be a lot more different, but I think in some ways we hide from that. If we've had mental illness, we tend to hide from responsibility and just go along with the masses. So instead we're going to have to be leading the masses or walking up from behind, whichever the case. And it is a different role, but I think we're up for it. That's the most important thing.
And are you up for it?
Yeah, most certainly, most certainly. Just got to hope I get up and out of bed and I'm here on time.
They're all doing research on the different peoples that have done so much in Southwark. So it's a real education as well as a walk.
On the day, I'll be talking about Octavia Hill. She was involved in housing, providing housing to vulnerable people in the society. And it's my first time and I'm really looking forward to it.
I think it's wonderful. They give their time freely, they come along, they're very enthusiastic.
And it doesn't matter how many times I say this on a walk and how many times I point it out when you're crossing the road, you'll still blindly follow each other, believe me. So hopefully the stewards, these nice people in these quiet orange jackets, will be sort of putting their arms out in front of you. That you don't have to follow their instructions, but it might help.
celebrating Sir Peter Mansfield. Who, by the way, it's actually his birthday today, and it's also John Lennon's birthday. We wrote to Sir Peter Mansfield, but unfortunately he is quite old and he was unable to come, but he does really wish us well on the walk.
He invented the MRI scan.
Come on, come closer.
And the EPI scan.
There's steps here.
He began his education in Devon when he was sent, he was evacuated out there during the Second World War. And then he came back to school in Peckham Central. And then in 1964, at the University of Nottingham, he came up with the NMR image, which allowed him to obtain digital images with high complex informative content. And this then led to the discovery of the MRI scan.
I just wanted to say that I had the experience of having an MRI scan at the Institute here a year ago, actually. I knew nothing at all about my brain, and it happened that I'd volunteered for a research project because I have Asperger's syndrome, and the idea of the project was to see if a brain scan could determine if a person had autism or not. And you had to stick your head inside this chamber. It's a bit claustrophobic, but it was okay anyway. And it lasts about 45 or 50 minutes, and you hear a lot of clicking and whirring and all sorts of funny noises, really. The image, apparently, it showed that my brain hadn't shriveled a lot. It was quite a young brain, you know. It was more typical of a man of 40. Apparently, when you're 60, the tissue of the brain starts shriveling, but in my case, apparently it hadn't done. So anyway, that was my experience of the MRI scan. So.
Let's walk.
It's the magnetic box that collects around the machine that does the scans. Without that, you couldn't have then taken it one step further. The MRI scan has actually opened up how people now think about mental illness. And with a scanner, you can now see changes in the brain which enable them to actually identify mental illness, as long as it's used properly and we don't go into the attitude where someone's got the wrong shaped brain.
Yeah, it's an MRI scanning machine. Those are the magnetic rings, and this is just a precursor to this one. This is the finished piece. And I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could have a sculpture with a man held suspended between these rings? And I just got to work on it. I'm chuffed. I'm happy that these little things here have inspired a big scale model like this. And it's a work of art, it's beautiful. I really like the intricate drawings going on it. I understand my friend Billy did most of it. I especially like the mouth where the stomach is. That's quite inspiring, very visceral. That's the heart? No, that's amazing. That is totally amazing. Look like they're about to give each other a kiss, or they're talking to each other. The guys who did the paint, the model. Wow, an explosion of colours. I've never thought to do that myself.
The MRI, I think.
MRI.
Have you had an MRI?
Yeah.
What was it like going inside?
Noisy. It kind of rattles and shakes. Like. It's quite primitive. The sound of it. I'll just land down. No, that's loads of noise. Or when I was in it, anyway.
Well, how did you feel when you were in it?
Just like, okay, just trying that. Just had to have it done because I had some fits, epileptic fits, so they'll give you a scan.
Okay, on that note, let's walk. Who's got John?
Faraday, because this is next door's Faraday Gardens, and Tracy is another person who's doing their first ever talk.
Well, now we are in Michael Faraday's gardens. He is a British physicist and chemist who discovered electromagnetism.
He was actually born very close to Elephant and Castle in Newington Butts, and although he was of, if you like, if you call him working class, he became a professor of Oxford, Fellow of the Royal Society, a very, very well-known lecturer. But in the old days, when he was doing chemical experiments in the time of Sir Humphrey Davy, it was ever so dangerous because they used to have explosions, and as a result of that, glass went in his eye, and I read that his own wife had to come to the chemistry laboratory and pick pieces of glass out of his eyes. Lucky he didn't go blind, but that was very dangerous. Faraday was at least 50% responsible with Sir Humphrey Davy for inventing the miner's safety lamp. Of course, there were quite a lot of other electricians like Volta and Ampere and Ohm, and they've given their name to units of electricity. But I think that Faraday was the sort of regarded as the most learned and scientific man, and he worked tremendously hard. He had a lot of illness, but he managed to overcome it. Anyway, I hope that's proved reasonably interesting. By the way, on the picture here, he was born in 1791, of course not 1971, and died in 1867. So he managed to live to be 75, and his wife survived him. She lived to be 78. They were married for 45 years. They didn't have any children, but they were a very, very devoted couple. All right?
Well, we're going to take this plug and plug him in.
Hang on. Here we go. All right then, onwards and upwards. This woman, by the way, helped hang an exhibition without a ladder.
If you look on the wall, you can see the blue plaque commemorating Charles Babbage, who was famous as the father of computing. His birthplace is disputed, but most people believe he was born here in Southwark in 1791, when Larcombe Street was called Crosby Row. The acknowledged group of great scientists, the Royal Society, approved Babbage's difference engine in 1823. It was designed to calculate polynomial equations, a more sophisticated version of the quadratic equations that school children learn. With overwork and the death of his father, the death of his wife Georgina and his infant son, Babbage nearly had a nervous breakdown in 1827. So to recuperate, he travelled to Europe with friends, passing through the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany and Italy, visiting universities and manufacturing facilities. Later in 1833, he began work on his analytical machine, which was designed as a basic computing machine, programmable to do any kind of calculation. However, like computers that were made up until the 70s, Babbage used punch cards with his machine that had been adapted from the jacquard loom from the cloth trade. Babbage wasn't mad, bad and dangerous to know, but Byron's daughter Ada Lovelace understood Babbage's machine and is today considered to be the first computer programmer.
In those days, a computer wasn't a machine, it was a person who did adding, you know, and they called them computers, but they weren't very accurate. And so Charles Babbage thought, well, that isn't much good, is it? Because all sorts of people in navigation and architecture needed very accurate figures. But what I'm saying is that Babbage was involved in lots of other things. He invented something called an occulting light. You know when you, a lighthouse, and you get these lights, and they flash, and then there's a pause, and then they flash again. Well, that's called an occulting light, and Charles Babbage invented that. Now, the first modern computer was built a month after the date of my birth, actually, so you can tell how old I am. That was May 1949. So he was a very sociable man, and he used to show people all the things he'd invented. I mean, one of them was an ophthalmoscope, and another of them was a device which caught cows that strayed onto a railway line. Anyway, that's about Charles Babbage, so I think personally he was the equivalent of Einstein. So thank you very much.
So we've made our sculptures out of cardboard. Therefore, you cannot melt them down. You cannot steal them because they're worth loads of money. They're worth loads of passion. And they're worth a lot of love, and they're worth a lot of labour. But also they're designed to disintegrate. So can we have a round of applause for Babbage?
Yeah, good old Babbage.
We will come back and liberate you because we're not leaving you on the dustbin. That would be dreadful, wouldn't it?
Octavia Hill was a strong advocate of small-scale housing, and she was very Catholic. In fact, she thought that women had to have a certain role in society, and if they were not married, they would have to to be a mother to people in society. She wasn't married herself, and we could say that she has been, in a sort of sense, a mother for the people in need that she helped. She thought large-scale housing had a few disadvantages. First of all, they were ugly and did not allow for individuality of the family, so they gave little opportunity to create a space that people could feel as their own. And also there were issues around behavior because of the density of the living, of the number of people involved. The tenants were responsible for themselves, so if they were in need, she would provide. However, she didn't want them just to rely on a charity or a provider. She wanted them to become independent. And she recruited middle-class women as volunteer rent collectors. In fact, we can consider these women as prototype of the modern-day social workers. Her first housing was actually in 1864, and that was in Marylebone Place in London. And it was a slum known as Little Hell. And she managed to finance her project with a loan from John Ruskin, a writer, and this proved very successful. In 1877, she actually had a collapse and had to take a break for several months, and this was due to a number of factors. And by 1874, she managed to have 15 housing schemes and provide housing for 3,000 tenants.
I was told that Octavia Hill was religious, hence the angel, and of course we've got the house there and the medical records. Yeah, it took I think about 5 weeks to make, and we really enjoyed making it. And I had help from Wasan, Ling and Michael. They helped me make it, and really happy the way it's turned out, and I just hope you really enjoy the work.
Everybody, congratulations on your walking. I'm Liz, I'm the Curator of Community Learning here at Tate Modern. I'm delighted you're here, and we're going to head in. There's lots of lovely things for you to eat and drink and sit on, but big welcome to Tate Modern. Congratulations on all your work, and come on in. Thanks.
David Morris was a campaigner on disability issues, and he did a lot of work around setting up events in London and setting up organizations that worked with disabled people. He also was very active in taking part in Largactyl Shuffles in the past, and his role in trying to highlight how disability does not have to limit one's activities and what one can possibly do. So he was a real campaigner in trying to encourage inclusiveness so disabled people are not excluded in the society.
People with mental health issues are disabled by virtue of their mental health, but quite often that's segregated from the physical. And one of the things we thought about when we put this walk together was that a lot of people with mental health issues have a physical disability on top, quite often caused by medication, as Largactyl's very demonstrative of. And so that's a kind of one of the thinkings behind it, but we also wanted to make it an inclusive walk.
My day job is working for the London Organising Committee of the Olympic and Paralympic Games. And I've got the enviable or unenviable, I don't know, task of looking at how we make sure that our city, when it welcomes the greatest number of disabled and deaf people to visit one city at one time in history, that we're ready and that we provide an accessible environment for everybody. I am a great supporter of the shuffle. I want to see in 2012 that we have the biggest Largactyl Shuffle with thousands and thousands of people celebrating our history as people that have survived institutions.
Born Christmas Day 1958, died 19th of April 2010, age 52. Proud owner of a wheelchair, designer of gadgets to enable, empower and allow disabled people to live independent lives. Amazing individual whose eloquence is profound. Your mother tongue was English, your heritage was Welsh, your mum lives in Barnet, and you could speak with a Russian tongue. And you campaigned for our rights, you touched us with your insight and spread it out with a passion. You took off to Beijing to carry the Paralympic torch in honour of us all. You brought back inspiration for how we should do it here. You championed the Largactyl Shuffle. You came with electric chair to ramble in the urban jungle. Sharing modern tales of interwoven lives changed by psychiatric intervention. Let's walk an inclusive walk each and every third Saturday. Let's carry an inspire mark, and together, wheelchairs, sticks, prosthetic legs, frames and feet, by whatever means necessary. You lie now in a garden amongst the trees. Your spirit is in the air, floating on the wind. The torch you bore spread light, and you inspired me. In honour of a torch-bearing hero, thank you.
I moved to Sadek over a year ago, and I didn't know about the area a lot. And then when I came for the first walk, like I said, it's a really fascinating area. It's like the historical facts. It's like living history, you know. And you start looking at things in a different way. Like you pass the same places, and you know what they're about. You know their history, and you start looking at things in a different way. So it really enriches your life.
Well, getting out in the big wide world is good for everybody's health. We all know that mental health affects 1 in 5 people, and evidence shows that physical activity is one thing. Let's say it's the cheapest prescription you'll ever write, especially for a GP, before you go down to the tablets and the potions.
There's a whole thing about education and thinking to do with walking, and whole philosophy on walking. Everybody's sitting on computer surfing these days and not walking, so it's probably stopping people thinking, because people would contemplate as they walk.
I studied art, and for me the walk is art itself. Everything that happens in the walk, it's a process. It's not about reaching the destination, it's what happens. It's people making connections between each other and between themselves in spaces and things on the way.
For me, it helps keep me sane, and it keeps my mind ticking over, and it just keeps me well.
I love walking personally because you always see something on a walk, and you come off the main roads and there's all these little gems of buildings or little things that you just never heard about or never see unless you go on a walk. So yeah, I loved it.
I was slightly apprehensive of coming because I hadn't been involved for a time,
But it was lovely because people, I haven't seen you for a bit. Nice to see you, rather than haven't seen you for a bit. Where have you been hiding? So I felt very positive about it. So that's good.
But yeah, it's lovely to see all the sights of South London.
And I tell you what, you look bloomin' wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Must be the 10 times I've got sections.
CoolTan are cool, aren't they? I mean, that's a really good name. They really look after the mental health of people in the local borough and the adjoining boroughs, because this goes across more than just Southwark.
CoolTan is a very positive side of the mental health, where you can turn things round and create some poetry, how you feel about it, get your feelings and that out through doing some like art, poetry they do there. So really, I think CoolTan Arts is the thing for me to help me get out issues about the mental health that I've got.
CoolTan are great because they give you real confidence, especially if you've been through a hard time, and especially for the artwork, for the creativity.
It's a place, a haven for people who've had an experience or something, and through the therapy of art, they sort of find themselves again, find their mental equilibrium. It's brilliant. I wish there was more organisations like it, or that CoolTan actually became big enough to become a national organisation. It should be doing more than just South London. It should be doing the whole country.